She knew what waited behind the door, but she knocked anyway. Not because she wanted to fight, not because she wanted blood, but because she needed to look her pain in the face. Because sometimes it feels worse to be haunted by the unknown than to walk head first into it. What she didn't know was that she would never knock again. And while her body lay cooling, the internet got loud. Not with grief, but with smug satisfaction, with snark, with she should have known better, and that's what she gets. What happened to all that talk of community, of healing, of believe women? Turns out, the Sisterhood has fine print. And the women who claim to be its loudest defenders, some of them only show up when the villain wears a tie, not when she wears lashes. Welcome to Velvet Ash. I'm Celeste, and I'm so glad you're here. Pull up a chair. Pour yourself a glass. Around here, we slow pour our brandy and sip it by the firelight. Tonight, we're taking a look into a recently viral story where a wife made the fatal mistake of confronting her husband's paramour. We won't be looking at this as a true crime commentary, but as a lens into the psychological, cultural, and spiritual decay unfolding in plain sight. I recently came across a viral story of a woman who, after learning of her husband's affair with another woman, decided to drive to that woman's house while the husband was there to confront them both. The other woman, the owner of the home, refused entry to the wife and demanded that she leave and confront her husband somewhere other than her house. The wife resisted and an argument broke out before the mistress shot the wife twice. The wife returned to her car where she succumbed to her injuries. At the time that I'm recording this, the mistress has been charged with 1 count of possession of a firearm as a felon. Without a doubt, this is a tragedy on multiple levels. But what I found most unsettling wasn't the violence itself, but the chorus of women who gathered online to rationalize it. These weren't trolls. These were women with curated platforms and carefully chosen affirmations in their bios. Women who post about healing and boundaries, about rising in the divine feminine, about burning sage and breaking generational curses. And yet, when faced with a woman who died chasing closure, they scoffed. They didn't just question her judgment, they ridiculed her humanity. They said she was a pick-me, unwilling to confront her husband and misdirecting her anger to the other woman. They said she shouldn't have gone to that house. They even said the other woman didn't owe her anything. These takes are presented as logical, measured, even empowered. These women posture as if they're bringing a sobering look at the other side of female behavior, as if they've been tasked with setting the record straight for delusional women. In actuality, their takes are little more than contempt, masked as keeping it a stack. And I'm here to call these takes what they really are: cold, callous, and hypocritical. Let's consider what it takes to knock on someone's door when your whole world is falling apart. See, we keep acting like this woman made some theatrical, unhinged choice, as if she was driven by drama. But what if it wasn't drama? What if it was despair? What if it was a woman trying to understand where her marriage went to die? I keep hearing this jab that the wife just wanted validation, as if seeking clarity from the woman who violated your marriage makes you weak or pathetic. Let me say this. Validation is not a crime. It's a cry. And sometimes the last thing holding a woman together is her need for someone, anyone, to acknowledge that her pain is real, that her life wasn't a lie, that her vows meant something, even if they were broken. This wasn't a fool seeking drama. This was a woman confronting a wound. And for that, she was sentenced by other women to shame and by the mistress to death. But the women who mocked her apparently are so callous that they have moved to justify this level of violence, suggesting that this woman's mere presence at the other woman's home indicated aggression and a threat of violence. They've proctored that the mistress's only job was to protect her home. And while we could volley that argument back and forth, I think attention should be called to the larger themes at play here. There's a new brand of womanhood trending right now. The one that posts about divine femininity, soft life, boundaries, but talks about other women like they're trash to be discarded when they crash out publicly. They say they stand for liberation, for self-elevation, but their version of liberation comes with a blacklist. It's not enough to distance themselves from the wife who showed up at the wrong house. They have to humiliate her, undress her dignity, reduce her to a cautionary tale. And if we're talking about it in the context of social media, they exploit that woman's pain, her death, for profit, for clicks, for that viral moment of real talk that really ain't real at all. And the most ironic part, these are the same women who once begged the internet to believe their pain, who crafted digital elegies about betrayal, survival, and reclamation. But when a wife breaks down publicly, chasing meaning at the edge of her own unraveling, she's met not with compassion, but with contempt. What does this say about us? That we have become fluent in the language of boundaries, but illiterate when it comes to grace. That we can recite healing mantras and yet mock the raw, unfiltered expression of pain when it dares to be inconvenient or messy or public. In this particular case, it may be that this woman didn't show up to fight. She very well may have shown up to feel something that made sense, to receive confirmation of her own reality. But somehow, the girlies have found a way to demonize and ostracize that reckoning. The sisterhood, if it exists, has become a gated community, and to enter, you must promise not to grieve in a way that centers men. You must promise not to make a scene that suggests codependency. You must promise not to look too broken by the patriarchy. But here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. Reckonings are rarely tidy. They don't come dressed in soft pink loungewear, journaling by candlelight. Sometimes they come with shaking hands, dry throats, and trembling voices on doorsteps. Sometimes they come with desperate knocks at doors that were never meant to open. And yes, sometimes they come with questions that deserve answers, even if those answers don't change a damn thing. We used to understand this. Women used to hold that kind of ache, not hide it, not ridicule it. I think of our grandmothers, women who confronted mistresses at church picnics, on porches, in pews, not because they didn't know who to blame, but because they knew that naming the harm was its own kind of liberation. Because back then, being silent didn't make you strong, it made you sick. We didn't always have the language for our pain, but we did hold space for it. We washed it in kitchen sinks. We buried it in garden beds. We sang it low under our breath while folding laundry or stirring pots. A woman's unraveling wasn't always met with mockery. Sometimes it was met with a chair at the table and a knowing glance across the room. We've seen it in every generation, in every culture. Women showing up, not with fists, but with fire in their chest and questions burning on their tongue. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they needed witness. Someone to see what had been torn. Someone to make it make sense. Someone to nod, even silently, and say, "You're not crazy. It happened. You're not alone." And still, even back then, there were women who didn't know what to do with that kind of grief made public. Women who clutched their pearls and looked away. Who called the betrayed wife loud, messy, unhinged. Women who, out of discomfort or denial, treated the one who dared speak of her heartbreak as irrational, irreverent, a spectacle. The difference now? The judgment is amplified. What was once whispered at the beauty salon or traded in side eyes at Sunday service is now stitched into viral commentary. Screenshots become gospel. Grief becomes content. And cruelty gets packaged as candor. I've heard the takes. The ones that say she died for a man. That she chose community genitals over her kids. There's rage under that laughter, but it's not the righteous kind. It's performance. It's the unbothered woman auditioning for the main stage. Because it's easier to mock than to mourn. Easier to feel superior than to feel vulnerable. But let's be clear. That woman didn't die for a man. She died in the aftermath of betrayal. She died in the storm of not knowing what was real anymore. And yes, maybe she shouldn't have gone. Maybe she could have stayed home. But instead of asking why she didn't stay home, maybe we should ask why she felt so alone she thought she needed to go. And if your commentary can't hold space for that question, then it's not commentary. It's just cruelty. So no, this isn't new. The ridicule of broken women has never gone out of style. But today, it's dressed in influencer gloss. It's got a ring light, a mic, and a link in bio. But this new brand of empowerment, it doesn't seek to understand women. It seeks to audit them. And that's why so many have latched on to this idea, lazy, unexamined, and repeated like gospel, that women don't want to confront their man when infidelity is discovered. That the other woman is just an easy scapegoat. That the wife or girlfriend is too afraid, too naive, too desperate to hold the man accountable. I'm here to say, that's not always true. Yes, sometimes there is transference. Yes, sometimes there's misplaced rage. But often, the confrontation isn't about avoiding the man. It's about a deeper emotional breach. It's about expectations. It's about betrayal, but not just by the man. It's about the unwritten code. For all the talk of women supporting women, for all the mantras about solidarity and soft life and holding each other up, there was an unspoken contract. Call it girl code, call it decency, call it a collective respect for sacred commitments. It existed. And it still does, quietly. So when a wife discovers that another woman knowingly stepped into that sacred space, it's not just heartbreak, it's indignation. Not because the mistress was supposed to act like a nun, but because she was expected to act like a woman who knows what it feels like to be one. And when that woman, the other woman, throws it in the wife's face, with smugness, with glee, with not so subtle mockery, that's not just insult, that's an act of war. Let's talk about the performance of the side chick, because it is a performance. There are women who know exactly what they're doing, who see the wife's heartbreak as a badge of their own desirability. They taunt, mock, or even post about their role as the better woman. The side chick isn't always hiding. Sometimes she's smirking. And when that kind of woman opens the door to a wife's devastation, standing there smug and unbothered, that's not a neutral party. That's provocation. And here's the kicker. These same women will say, "He's her man, not mine," as if that strips them of all responsibility. As if knowing that a man is married and choosing to engage anyway doesn't ethically implicate her. What happened to the collective morality we used to call on? The shared responsibility to do no harm. These women claim to be untouchable because the contract wasn't with them. But in some states, that's not just morally bankrupt, it's legally flimsy. Alienation of affection is real, and in some states, you can be sued for it. Because at the end of the day, intimacy does have consequences, even if the ring's not on her finger. So no, the wife likely didn't go to that house because she was scared to confront her husband. She likely already had. She went because the betrayal wasn't just private anymore. It had a second face. And that face was smirking. That face was flaunting. That face had no shame and no softness. And maybe, just maybe, the wife thought that if she looked that second betrayal in the face, she might finally understand how it all unraveled. And while we're here, let's talk about another lazy narrative that gets tossed around anytime someone dares to empathize with the wife. The idea that women like myself must be male identified, that we're pick-me's, that the only reason we push back on the mockery and dehumanization is because we too would pull up at somebody's house, that we're only defending her because we see ourselves in her foolishness. And I'll say this plainly, that is disingenuous at best and intellectually bankrupt at worst. It is not male identified to name grief when you see it. It is not pick-me behavior to refuse to pile onto a woman who died trying to reclaim her reality. If anything, it's an act of integrity. It's emotional literacy. And if we're gonna play the logic game, let's extrapolate. If this were a workplace betrayal, and we found out that a coworker was colluding with our manager to sabotage our projects, to siphon our credit, to take what wasn't theirs, we wouldn't just take it up with management. We'd talk to the coworker too. And no one would accuse us of misdirected anger. No one would say we were codependent on the corporation. They'd understand that when multiple parties participate in harm, accountability is not a triangle, it's a web. So no, I don't have to agree with every decision the wife made to recognize that she was not the only one who broke the code. And I don't need to identify with men to defend a woman's right to not be humiliated in death. Strip away the hashtags and the hot takes, and what remains? A woman at a door. A knock that should have meant witness, but was answered with bullets. In the end, she knocked, not just on a door, but on the conscience of a culture that had already stopped answering. She wanted witness. She was met with judgment. She wanted truth. She was met with bullets. And after she died, the same sisterhood she might have once believed in turned her story into a meme, a morality tale, a punchline. But here in this space, I name her ache as understood. I name her unraveling as human. And I name the critique that followed as betrayal. If your feminism disappears when the harm is done by a woman, it was never rooted in healing. If your empathy dries up when a woman grieves the wrong way, it was never rooted in grace. And if you find yourself more comfortable ridiculing the broken than holding space for their pain, then you are not as healed as you think you are. We're not going to build the world we deserve by mocking the women who didn't survive the one we inherited. This has been Velvet Ash. I'm Celeste, and I thank you for bearing witness with me.